Test. Good afternoon, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this press conference to present the statement of preliminary findings and conclusions by the Election Observation Mission sent by the OSCE Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights for yesterday's presidential elections. Presenting this statement today will be Ambassador Peter Taylor, the head of the Election Observation Mission. Joining us also today on the dais is Paulina Lemos, the deputy head of the mission. Now we will have an opportunity later after the statement for questions from journalists, but in the meantime, I'll hand the floor to Ambassador Taylor.
Thank you very much, Tom, and first welcome all to this press conference the day after the early presidential election in Uzbekistan. I would like to start to remind you that the OSCE ODIHR Election Observation Mission opened here on November 2nd, and we have followed the campaign, media, preparations ever since, during the pre-campaign, during election day, and we will continue to do so. We have had the opportunity to listen, in principle, to all national stakeholders, including the 4 candidates. We have also met representatives of the media, civil society, international community, and many more. Our 20 long-term colleagues were deployed on the 9th of November, and they have had the time to get acquainted with their counterparts on district and local levels. A few days ago, the mission was reinforced by some 150 short-term observers who focused on election day, thus making the 7th OSCE ODIHR Election Observation Mission the first one to include comprehensive observation in polling stations on election day. And if I'm correctly informed, tabulation still continues in the district election commissions, and our colleagues are there and will stay there until the process is over. We are, as you know, and you heard me saying a few times, we are observing the entire process. So, as a result of these endeavors, the preliminary statement, or as the colleague said, the statement of preliminary findings and conclusions, rests on a solid ground. It's based on facts, and is also based on a multitude of relevant data, all according to the methodology that we have followed, and a methodology that has been developed after more than 300 election observations in the OSCE participating states, and also upon instructions of the Council of Ministers, and everything, as you know, is based on a number of relevant documents. Before the presentation of the report, let me add that my mission has been warmly received in Uzbekistan. ODIHR got an open invitation from your authorities to observe this election, and from day one, the Central Election Commission has been most cooperative and has answered hundreds of questions from my team. We are grateful for this cooperation, and we are also very grateful to the CSE chairman, Mr. Abdusalamov. I think that this spirit of cooperation has really been noticeable through the weeks that we have been here, and it bodes well for our future cooperation. It has also made it very clear to us how important this election is and has been for the future of Uzbekistan and for the Uzbek people. I think it's important to understand correctly the statement that we are presenting today. It is, according to the ODIHR mandate, also an invitation to assist Uzbekistan in improving the election process in the country. The point of our observation and assessment in whichever country we are is not to either praise or criticize elections, but to identify where there may be shortcomings, and also to make recommendations on how these can be addressed. In about 8 weeks, ODIHR will release its final report, which will contain those recommendations, and as always, will stand ready to assist in their implementation. Let me finally, before I walk you through the preliminary report, take this opportunity to extend a very special and warm thank you to my own team and to my mission colleagues, to my core team members, to the long-term and short-term observers, to reinforcements that have come from Warsaw, but also to my national Uzbek colleagues, assistants, secretaries, drivers, cleaning staff, translators, guards, simply to all of you. We all worked very long hours, often late, sometimes in the night, and I would like to extend a very special thank you to Polina. She has been working more than most and slept less than most. Thank you very much, Polina. But I think all in all, my team, regardless if you are international or national, we have shown commitment to the mandate of the mission and also to this country. As head of my mission, I'm very grateful to you. You have supported me in a way that has made my life rather easy. And let me add, I know that the ODIHR director in Warsaw and his team are joining me in this appreciation. So thank you very much. So let's now move over to the preliminary findings. The 4th December presidential election underscored the need of comprehensive reform to address long-standing systemic shortcomings. The legal framework is not conducive to holding democratic elections. The election administration undertook measures to enhance the transparency of its work and prepared efficiently for the election. The dominant position of state actors and limits on fundamental freedoms undermined political pluralism and led to a campaign devoid of genuine competition. Media covered the election in a highly restrictive and controlled environment. And the dissemination of a state-defined narrative did not allow voters to receive an alternative viewpoint. Significant irregularities were noticed on election day, yesterday, including indications of ballot box stuffing and widespread proxy voting, despite a concerted campaign to address the latter. Election commissions faced difficulties in completing the results of the protocols. So let me expand a little on this. What does it mean? The election is regulated by a multitude of laws and Central Election Commission resolutions. Recent technical amendments address some of the previous ODIHR recommendations, but most of other long-standing key recommendations remain unaddressed. Overall, the legal framework unduly limits fundamental freedoms of expression, association, and assembly, and is restrictively implemented. Election commissions, led by the Central Election Commission, efficiently administered operational aspects in the pre-election period and met all legal deadlines. The CEC held open sessions and promptly published its decisions, thus contributing to the transparency of the process. Important procedures related to election day and the tabulation of results were left unregulated. And as I said, significant irregularities were noted on election day, including indications of ballot box stuffing and widespread proxy voting. 4 party-nominated candidates, including the Prime Minister, who serves as the acting president, and those 4 candidates run in the election. There is no provision for self-nominated candidates. In a positive step, the number of signatures candidates must gather to register was lowered from 5 to 1% of the electorate. However, continued requirements related to residency, language, proficiency, and criminal convictions are contrary to international obligations. The 4 candidates refrained from challenging each other's platforms and government policies, and voters were not presented with a genuine choice of political alternatives. The campaign activities of one candidate blurred the line between party and state. The ample free time and space granted to each candidate in state media markedly exceeded journalistic editorial coverage, which consisted of uniform and repetitive reports on candidate activities in a predominantly positive tone. as access to national and international analytical and critical websites continued to be blocked, the public was shielded from a genuine exchange of political ideas, effectively compromising voters' ability to make an informed choice. The absence of a centralized voter register and the possibility of registration on election day makes it difficult to ensure that voters are included in only one voter list and only once. The lack of safeguards against multiple registration and voting potentially undermines the integrity of the process. I will stop there and hand over to the moderator and you take the rest.
All right, thank you. All right, we have time, as I mentioned earlier, for questions from the media. I'll ask you, please, if you do have a question, to raise your hand, and we'll have a microphone brought to you. And before you ask your question, if you could please just give your name as well as the media outlet which you represent.
Mahmoudova, I represent information agency Turkestan Press. Your mission has been working in Uzbekistan practically throughout a month, and because of within this long period of time you had a chance to meet different people, different institutions, including the ones who have been in the election committees as well as with the electorate and the voters. Legislation of Uzbekistan, the modern one, provides a wide range of authority for the international observers. My question is the following. Have you had any problems during the meetings in the territory of Uzbekistan while you have been implementing your mission? How would you assess the organizational activities, and to what extent the arrangements for your stay in Uzbekistan have been done in a good way?
Thank you very much. Let me just come back to this. We have been very well received. We have met excellent cooperation. We still, as you know, have long-term observers and short-term observers whom we have not been able to speak with yet, totally. We will have a debrief tomorrow. The all-over impression that we have is that also outside of the area which we are visiting, this level of cooperation has been very good, and they have been very well received. And as you are saying, we have been here working now for a little more than a month. So I would say that this is the all-over impression. And it's also important, as you are saying, that the organization, again, as we see it, was from the side of the Central Election Commission, done in an efficient way. Again, all time limits were met. The publication of the decisions on the website also made it very easy for us. So the arrangement, as we can see it, and the instruction from the CEC were very well administered. When we look at this, we will also like them to we will refer also to the final report. We are still not ready. There's still a process going on out there. The Central Election Commission has not yet published the preliminary results. I understand they will do that shortly, but they will also later publish the final results. So we are still assessing an ongoing process. For us, it's important also to underline the independence of this mission. And it goes back to the methodology that we follow, and that it has been sort of worked out over a long period. But regardless of this independence, I have no hesitation to say that the arrangements, as we have been able to see them, have been in general okay. There are findings when you read the report where we go into details. But I think that's a proper answer to your question.
Dmitry Povarov, agency RIA Novosti. Can we arrive to the conclusion that in spite of the good administration of the elections were lacking the spirit of competition? Do you think so? Thank you.
If you, would competition mean competition among the candidates, yeah, I think it's important to underline that that's a number of covers a number of issues. You have the role of the media, which I've alluded to, where you have, we argue that, and our assessment is that it did not give enough space for the competitive competitive campaign where you compare the platforms, where you critically review the platforms. I think one can also say that an element which would increase the competitiveness is, of course, debates between the candidates themselves. When the four different alternatives are matched against each other in a debate between the candidates, and that was also not present. So we are looking at a number of aspects where we mean that taken all together, that could have been a much more competitive environment. Again, the aim being to allow the voter to make an informed choice.
Good afternoon. My name is Jamila Novjanova. I represent National Association of Electronic Mass Media, Uzbekistan. Mr. Taylor, you have been to our country and to our office, and you have seen our office. Mr. Taylor, please turn off your microphone. And if you remember, we have been to our office and we have shown you different type of social video spots and the election-related spots. And in addition, if you heard, on the November 30th, we have launched the press club, which is covering all the activities specific to the elections of the president. And that was the initiative of the National Association of the Electronic Media of Uzbekistan. So we didn't have any state support. It was basically done based on the initiative of the NGOs. So you mentioned that you are making your assessment based on number of observations. How would you assess the coverage of the presidential elections by the non-governmental radio and television outlets?
Thank you very much, and thank you for receiving us the other day. We have noticed that there also has been agreement between private media and the Central Election Commission, similar to the one that the state outlets are having. When we look at it, and we have been monitoring media since more or less we opened our activities, our point is that we don't see all that much of a difference. And it comes back also to the previous question that the competitiveness also depends not only on the media, but also on what the media gets from the candidates, from other institutions. So for us, when we make an honest assessment, as you will see in the text, and as I sort of how I answered the previous question, is that there is more to be done, both from the private media and also from state media, when it's come to create a more competitive environment. And as you will see in the text, we have not, in our monitoring, made significant differences between the media outlets that we have been able to follow. So it's also the issue where we come back to what I tried to allude at the first time. It's important that a diversity of views is being published and be presented to the voters. And the assessment, again, entirely with the state media and the private media, is that there is scope for more diversity, there is scope for more competitiveness, there is scope also for more competitive, direct competitiveness between the candidates.
Uzbekistan Today newspaper. Mr. Taylor, first of all, I would like to say that the reports of the OSCE, we like them because they have some notes of criticism. For instance, after the elections in the United States of America, OSCE has produced a very critical report, which I really liked. But nevertheless, I would like to ask the following question. In the interim report that you just voiced to us, you have noted that in the meetings of the candidates with the voters, they mainly speak about the heritage of the authority. Don't you think that it's important, the legacy of the political course? And the second question is the following. You have mentioned that sometimes we were not following like one voter, one vote. But these very facts that you have mentioned, do you think that they produced a significant impact to the results of the elections?
Thank you very much. When it comes to the legacy, I think it's what we are looking at and what we are trying to assess is this election and what it means for the future. And as I said, we are fully and we're very grateful for the many conversations that we have had, that we fully understand the importance of the election. So this is just to say that we still say, well, the legacy is one point. When you have the platform and you have election, you are electing a future, so an administration for the future. And let me then also add the first question. First, to say we don't compare elections with elections here or elections there. So this is very important, and we are also admitting, and I hope it's very clear. One is that we don't say, thumbs up to that election or thumbs down to that election. No election is perfect. No election is black and white. I think that what we will try to say is that, excuse me, that there are shortcomings. And the point is that the shortcomings should be addressed in the future. And some of these shortcomings which we point at are also shortcomings that the CSC, we know, they have addressed. They've spoken to us about it. We mentioned the proxy voting. We have also, of course, followed the training and the open interaction that the CSC has had with other electoral authorities. We have been invited, so we have been able to follow them, and they have had a comprehensive training program. So this is, the important is to say, well, what are we aiming at? I think the important thing is, why do we have this exercise is we all should be able to design an election process that prevents occurrences of this kind. And this is also the understanding that we have from the CSC. But let me remind you that the aim of the cooperation and this mission, again, is not to say good and bad and thumbs up and thumbs down. It's actually to support and offer cooperation to the participating states to develop an election process that is there to develop a process that can lead to this improvement, that can lead to a situation where one can eliminate occurrences of the kind that you mentioned, and you will also read about it in our preliminary statement. But remember that in this preliminary statement, we don't have the recommendations which we will present at a later stage when we have been able to more thoroughly assess the process and more thoroughly to take a look at what are the recommendations that we offer, and also what are the support that we can offer if the authorities of Uzbekistan would like us to get engaged.
Народное слово, newspaper Rashid Bekov. Many observers, including the missions from the serious countries from the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, they are mentioning the high level of election-related issues, awareness of the population. For instance, for the first time, as you know, in practice we have accepted the program of activities on raising awareness of the legal culture of the voters, which covered basically all the population of Uzbekistan. How would you assess the level of awareness, legal election awareness of Uzbekistan in the country?
Thank you very much. The efforts of the CEC, also reflecting in media, is definitely a positive sign, which you will, when you read the report, we also reflect. It's of course difficult to to assess the awareness of the population. It's easier to assess how in the polling stations the work is being carried out. When we observed the sort of election yesterday in the polling stations, there's also the question about did everyone have an ID when he or she came? And then we noticed a few did not have it. And we also noticed that some were told simply to go back to get their IDs, and we also noticed somewhere where they still allowed the voters to cast his or her vote. I think it's important in a process where Uzbekistan is that this continues, that the awareness program continues, and it has, for me, it has two different aims. One is to educate the public, so they know about their rights and how to do it, and technically, so how do you vote. And the other one is, of course, to educate the very many election officials about the correct procedures, to acquaint them with the procedures, to acquaint them with the amendments in the legislation. So it really has two angles, and we have noticed that the CEC has been very active. The CEC has been training. We have also noticed through our LTO colleagues out in the district that this has also been reflected on district level and local level.
Okay, I think we have time for two more questions today, so I'll ask first you and... Thank you. Okay.
Good afternoon, Pravda Rostoka. My name is Yulian Amaros. I'm a reporter. Well, I think it would be fair to say that these very presidential elections, these are extraordinary, and the shift of the power is happening in the constitutional framework. So two things. The Central Election Committee, they announced the election days, and they have invited the observers. There are 2 points. Like the elections that indicate the maturity of the democratic institutes and the results of the democratic development in our country. How would you assess these 2 points through elections in Uzbekistan? Thank you.
We don't assess the outcome. The outcome is we assess a process, and about the outcome, that's a decision by the Uzbek voters, and it's also up to the Uzbek voters to assess the outcome. So we don't have any views. We are here to observe and nothing more. When it comes to the sort of maturity issue, and I think starting where you started, the extraordinary election in extraordinary circumstances. And again, we notice this. We have had all these conversations which reflect exactly what you are saying. This is a step from a president that has been there for a very long period and over to a new president, which is of course an extraordinary event. The maturity, we don't assess the maturity again, we assess the process. So what we can assess again is how is this reflected in the different assessment that we're making on a number of issues. Again, when you see the report, we have made an honest try to reflect all this. And if you call this maturity, if your conclusion is maturity, we can just then sort of assess the process, and then it's up for others to draw the conclusions of maturity.
Sorry, and I think time-wise, as we go tight, this will have to be our last question for today, but please.
Thank you. Kubareva Feruza, Народное слово newspaper. Well, Mr. Athanbek has mentioned about the program. I would like to remind that the previous elections also, your mission had the briefing here in this room, and one of the comments that you made was the family voting. So in order to raise the election-related awareness of the population was the family voting, and there were a number of different activities that have been carried out. And right now we're not really speaking about the family voting. Do you see that very result as a positive result, that there were no kind of when one person is voting for the entire family?
We don't have all the information from our colleagues out in the field. So what I can say, based on what we know, there has been incidents of family voting. But again, this is something where I will not be all that clear, because we need to get more information from the colleagues out there. And again, when you said last time we were in this room, fine, we don't compare. We don't compare with what my predecessor said. We don't compare between the different reports. We are here to assess this process. We are here to make recommendations after this process. But again, I can reflect that this is something where we understand the Central Election Commission also has its reservation. That is why the entire process of information education, also in your newspaper, has been conducted. And it obviously meets a need which the Central Election Commission has felt.
Your way out, you'll find copies of the preliminary statement in Okay, so the preliminary statement is in 2 languages. You'll find there the press release for today in 3 languages, in Russian, Uzbek, and English. For the missing language with the the preliminary statement, that will be available on our website in the nearest future. Apologies for the delay with that, but translation in a short time is a difficult thing. Aside from that, I want to wish you all a wonderful rest of the day.